All right, we are live in our conversation about the recent federal vaccine mandates. We're just going to wait for some people to get in the room and we'll get started. All right. Well, I have reason to believe we will be having company shortly. So, hold on to your hats, everybody. I was thinking about giving a bit of an intro on this topic, but I figured I'd wait for our first guest, and here he is, Raul. Welcome to the show, buddy. What do you think about what do you think about the vaccine mandates and all that jazz? Raul? Raul, can you hear me? Going once, going twice.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now, man. Welcome. Glad I can hear you.
Yeah, I think I was on mute. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. So give me your hot take. Oh, there's everybody, and now it's a party.
Yeah, so like I think like the mandate definitely like raises a question on like how much power the government has over individual citizens and how much if this is allowed, like what else can the government mandate other people do in the first place? And also the question like bodily autonomy, and I think it's very interesting. It's like what this means if this is the precedent that sets, if the government can mandate this, like what else could they mandate that follows?
I mean, but hasn't the government already mandated what drugs you can't put into your body? So I mean, like, there's
definitely a difference, right?
No, there's not a difference because the government is mandating some sort of behavior. Period. Right? I mean, like, regardless of what side of that behavior you want to come down on, if the government is mandating a specific type of behavior, that's the same issue, period.
That's an interesting
argument. Don't you think there's a difference between government injecting something into you and saying you can't inject a certain substance into your own body? Like, don't you think there's a difference there?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't think that. But there aren't even any specific government mandates yet. The only thing that we see is like businesses putting in mandates. It says, "Hey, if you want to work here, you need to get a vaccine." And how is that any different than anything else that we allow companies to do? Because a company can say, "Oh well, if we test you for drugs, you can't work here," or if you say something on social media, you can't work here, or if you do this, that, and the other act, you can't work here. Like, so like. I guess the whole thing about government mandates with vaccines right now, I don't even think that's really a case. Like, the federal government does not have a mandate on vaccines right now, period.
Also, I'd like to acknowledge that I feel like if there's going to be any contention against government mandates, the example of a pandemic that has literally stricken the U.S. economy and put people not only out of work, but on the street would be a pretty extreme example to have a problem with government mandates. As a matter of fact, by the way, according to some sources, most of the American people are totally okay with the vaccine mandate. We just want to get past the pandemic and go back to life as it was before the pandemic started. So this would be the one time where I think a government mandate would be the best option.
Yeah, so like government or like public opinion is like 60-40 right now from the last time I saw. It's like people are well, not for mandates or anything particular like that, but people who are for against vaccines. It's like 60-40, right? I mean, it's fair.
Well,
that's a different question. Like the tyranny of majority, right? If the majority deems something, does that make it right?
Wait,
I think that's a different question.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but Lebowski, I just want to get a clarifier there. When you said 60-40 on vaccines, do you mean like mandates or do you mean like just towards the vaccine in general?
No, just towards the vaccine in general.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 60, like even in Texas of all places, when they do polling, like it's like 58 to 42 of people who are in favor of vaccines.
Yeah, well, I
versus-
mean, vaccines and vaccine mandates are different things, obviously. But yeah, a lot of people.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
John Boy, I thought you were trying to get in here a little earlier. Want to hop on?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you saw it, Lebowski. There was a recent update from Biden on the policy from the federal government that mandates a loaded word, but essentially it's putting more requirements on businesses and how they either test or require vaccinations for their employees. I don't know if that was. It's relatively newer.
Yeah, but I thought the thing with Biden, like, because Biden has all the rights in the world to do that with federal employees, and I know they've come out and said, "Hey, federal employees, hey, you got to get with the game or get out." You know,
That's correct.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
The second part is requirements on private businesses for more than 100 employees.
Private businesses with 100 people or more need vaccines or weekly tests, which will drive any business of 100 employees out of business very quickly.
Or at least put pressure on the.
Or
I think it's like $7,000 fine per case.
I think it's at 14.
It's like per week.
But that's the thing. Like, I do think I think something to quell that kind of issue would be maybe give certain exemptions to places that have to be open, or people have to actually be there for their job. Like, I work in IT and I've been working from home for fucking, God, dude, it's coming on a year in 9 months now. A year. I mean, it's been a long time. March 2020 to September. So what, like a year and 6 months that I've just been stuck at home. And yeah, it sucks, man. I would love to get back to the office, but we do have the privilege of being able to work from home. So yeah, I mean, like, we should probably have some certain things in place for people who have to actually be on site for jobs, like people who are maybe working in oil fields. Like, you can't work in an oil field from home. It's just not going to be the case. So there should be like certain exceptions in these kind of things, but I don't think that's out of line, right? I mean,
would you say the government has the authority in that scenario for those types of industries to require private business to enforce that private business require employees to get vaccinated?
Yes.
Where?
To a certain extent.
So I would say.
The government
Sorry,
have
keep
the
going.
ability to mandate certain things on companies that relate to employees in all sorts of fields, in all sorts of like aspects, regardless of vaccines. So if we're talking about jurisdictional issues, I mean, that's like we're going to be getting into the weeds of specific legal arguments that are being made, and that's. Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily where we're going to go in this argument.
I'm not an attorney. It's more like, should they, right? I think we can have that conversation.
Well, the thing is, it wasn't even like an act of legislature. Like, it wasn't even a law. It was just the president and all of his executive bodies just deciding to do it. Like, I would be able to tolerate this a lot easier if it was actually the legislature, but it wasn't. Which is what's really really concerning to me.
Yeah.
They can just sign a piece of paper.
Executive orders have gone back so far.
It's really bad. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's just like I don't know if you guys remember like how much people freaked out about how many like executive orders Obama passed. If you actually take the time and look at it, Obama passed like the least amount of executive orders of any modern president. Like by like a good amount. George Bush way more. Donald Trump damn near as much as Obama in 4 years versus Obama's 8, and then Bill Clinton. It's fucking crazy.
If I may, I'd like to ask for all the questions. If, and the key word there is if, so don't misconstrue my words, please. If you're proposing that a vaccine mandate is a bad thing, and you generally want America to get past coronavirus, I would love to know what you propose as an alternative solution.
I mean, this is gonna sound pretty radical.
I think that's like a different issue.
No,
like,
it's not.
Like,
I mean,
there's a problem, right? Like, do you have like individual rights that can't be infringed against to solve that problem as society wide? Like in China, when the coronavirus started, they like welded people into their homes to stop the pandemic, right? And it worked in the beginning. But does that make it just? Because like the end cause was like
a separate issue. If you're saying that there's a problem with the government mandating vaccines across the board, then what do you propose as a solution? Or do you not want to get past the coronavirus? That is all I'm asking.
I would say that's a false binary. I would say
yeah. Like look at Israel. Like they're acting with the booster drive.
Well, maybe not, let's not use the scenario that Aaron said. So let's look at it this way. So if we do have an infectious disease that is affecting people and killing people, what percentage of the population would it take for that disease to kill people for you to then think a government mandate would be justified?
That's a good question. I don't have an.
To me, that's the interesting question.
I don't have an actual number in my head, so I don't know. But to me, the vaccine is basically a protective agent. And as soon as everybody has the ability to get a vaccine, at that point it feels like, okay, you're responsible for your own health now. You can protect yourself. We're not going to hamstring our entire country's economy and freedoms because of a minor risk to you that you can actually defend against. That doesn't seem reasonable to me. But towards the beginning of the pandemic, I 100% understood the argument because we didn't know what we were dealing with. And if you did this on like a local level, I might even be okay with it. My point is that this wasn't local, it was federal, and it wasn't even the legislature, it was the executive. And it's just
exactly
really seemed like a massive overreach to me. Not out of line with other previous massive overreaches, but just like one more overreach.
Exactly. So I just want to clarify because it seems to me, Raul, John Boyd, John, you guys are all sort of coming from a libertarian viewpoint of like, hey, government, keep your hands off. Let me do what I want to do. That's the basic thrust of where you're coming from.
At this point, yes.
Yeah.
Tom's been in here
in this conversation, sure.
Get to a point where it's bad enough.
Don't roll me in with all the libertarians.
Government would have to do something, right? But like even the case, say like Black Pig, like in that case, will the vaccine mandate really work that much? If people are seeing this mass chaos when they get the vaccine themselves, if they see it works, like what would be the point of mandate in the first place? If people see people are dying around them and vaccines saving them, there'd be no need for a mandate. They'll give themselves. Like there was no mandate in Japan or like Taiwan because people generally believe in the vaccine in the first place. So there's no need to mandate it in the first place. They just got and get it.
Yeah, well, the first vaccine mandate that ever happened in the United States was from George Washington when he mandated that the Continental Army get smallpox vaccination. That was the first mandate that ever took place regarding vaccines in the United States. And that was the very first president of the United States, right? So it's not like this is something that's so far out of line that's like, where is this even coming from?
Yeah, I mean, George Washington did a lot of things that most presidents
not the general public.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Continental Army, but it was
it was a general inoculating his army during wartime.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from, but I don't think that's exactly the same thing.
But the Continental Army back then was not a voluntary army, right? It wasn't the same thing we have now, where people go and they go to a recruiter when they're 18 years old and be like, oh, okay, why get $20,000 for my GI Bill and like this signing bonus and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, they just went to like every able-bodied man and young boy and said, hey, guess what? You guys are fighting. That's just the way it worked.
I would.
Your body basically belongs to the state. for the state to use your body basically further its own interest, right? Like they can send you to die if they wanted to, even if you're conscripted or voluntary.
Yeah, and at that point, a vaccine mandate was way less serious than being conscripted into military service, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine now if people were being like conscripted in military service, nobody would give a shit about like, oh, the government's told us to take a vaccine, but like, oh, they could just fucking take us and throw us in throw us in the army, you know.
Tom,
I don't think a vaccine mandate will really matter that much.
Exactly.
I would still.
Give me a different time.
Aaron, go ahead. No, hold on. Aaron, go ahead, and then Tom's gonna be next because he's been in here for a while. So go ahead.
My question is still valid, and it's not a dichotomy. I'm asking you.
Okay, I'll answer.
If you don't want the government to step into this line of authority, which on some level I can kind of agree with, but given the circumstances, I just don't get. What do you propose as an alternative?
My alternative is localities handling it based on their based on their local situation, and letting, even on the more micro level, letting individual people decide what they want to do for their own safety. I think at this point we are out of crisis mode, and quite frankly, like I said, I don't think we need a government solution at this point. I think the federal government's role in this matter is essentially over. So I don't really think...
Are we out of crisis mode?
This is not a pandemic.
To my mind, anyway.
Well, this is an endemic, right? It's not a pandemic anymore. This is probably going to last us for all of our lives.
Yeah, eradicating COVID isn't an option. Tom, you've been in here for a while.
If your answer is to simply, like what I said with the vaccine passports, let the localities take care of it, I agree.
John's right.
Well, we've got to live, man. If our economy doesn't go, more people are going to die. I mean, it's just there's just consequences to life.
There's consequences on both sides. Like there's consequences on the side of the economy if we shut everything down too long and do all that. There's also consequences on the side, like if we never shut anything down, the amount of people who are going to be sick and businesses who are going to have to close down because they no longer have, the workforce to even support it. And like it's all over the place, right? And it's one of the.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that's why I think it makes it interesting questions, because I don't think we have a clear answer on either side. Nobody knows yet until like all the chips have fallen and we can read the chicken bones, if you will, at that point. If you know what I'm talking about.
About the same number of people are going to die. They're just trying to control the death rate to where it's manageable and just not going to overwhelm the system. But the same number of people are going to die an hour later, or at some rate, I think.
Yeah. You're thinking about in the sense of like, maybe it's better to control the rate at which people are getting sick, so we have like the medical capability and facilities to intake these patients who are having problems, as opposed to having a complete uncontrollable influx of all of a sudden people. Is that?
Yeah, that was flattening the curve, right? That was basically the idea.
That is the idea.
We got a lot of people who just hopped in. Tom, keep going.
This is all going to be with it. It's just going to be with us. We'll continue to have to get vaccinations every year, and people are going to die just like they die.
Yeah, what I think I got from that is the idea that like we can't get rid of it at this point. It's going to be an endemic part of our lives. Just going forward, it's not going away, so we just have to learn to adapt to it.
It's sad that we've gotten to that point.
You think
If
we
we
were
would have
still
taken steps before, absolutely, yeah. We could have had this controlled to a significantly greater degree, but we failed in every single step, from the implementation of mask mandates to the actual implementation of social distancing to contact tracing to like every step of the way we buckled it. So then, of course, it's going to be with us forever, and of course, it's been allowed to actually mutate and change into all these scary strains. I mean, of course it happened. We failed to take every single measure to prevent it.
All right, well, fair enough, mate. But at this point, that's what would you propose?
Honestly, if we're talking about vaccine mandates specifically, I would be okay with it being as common as a flu shot.
A flu shot's mandatory?
As I guess necessary as any other. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, MMR is mandated. Like you have, like all kids have to get their MMR, especially if you're going to public schools, right? So like they already do have certain vaccines.
Well, if you're going to public schools, being the operative term there, right?
When also like yeah, I mean like TB vaccination, like. Man, if you're not familiar with that, like when somebody gets TB, you're in quarantine for like fucking 3 months. Anybody that you came into contact with is in quarantine for like.
Yeah, but okay, so that's true. But we have to draw
There are
this.
quarantine people with TB. So I saw them in guys.
They do. You get antibiotics, but you even with TB, like still to this day, if you get TB, you're quarantined for a long time. Like because even once you get on antibiotics, like you can still pass it. It's so highly contagious that it's I mean, there's no room to fuck around with something like TB, right?
No, it goes dormant. Hey, you have it. You have a draw line. It goes dormant. Encapsulates. Yeah, I have it.
Oh, you have TB?
Yeah. I caught it the first 6 months I was working in a hospital.
Ooh.
Yeah, dormant TB is a thing for sure. But yeah, otherwise, mandating it in the same way any other vaccines mandated for public works, so I don't see that as a problem.
For public
Again,
works,
at the same time,
yeah.
private business
Mandate also?
specifically enforce that sort of implementation. Sure, I see no problem with it.
Okay. How about this particular problem? That the federal executive doesn't have the authority to tell private businesses that they have to force their employees to make certain medical decisions. What do you say to that particular argument?
I mean, at this point, it becomes something similar to the, what the hell was it that Trump got all excited for, the Defense Production Act, where, hey, in public need, and when there's a crisis of public need, the government does have the opportunity to step in and say, hey, there's something that needs to be done here. Let's take these steps to mandate a vaccine in this case, or specify production, or, hey, at some point a regulatory body has to help when nothing else will work.
Would you consider our current situation a crisis?
Yes.
All right, well, understandable. If there's a crisis, then yeah.
Should trucks also be mandated?
Well, but I also do have a question. What is to you? What is the differentiation between like maybe city government, county government, state government, federal government? You could
allocation of police power.
This idea of like federal government.
Yeah, allocation. Yeah. The reason is
you have allocation of power, but like. So then everything gets broken down to state government, but then state government still has this monopoly of power over all the cities. So what we want to do is break off like city governments from state governments and have them be their own sovereign thing as well.
Well, I mean, city governments exist. I mean, I'm not advocating for cities to like have revolutions against their states, but city.
No, not revolutions.
No, I know, I'm joking.
This is something like this is sort of like my libertarian side, because I think it would be better if we had like the ancient Greek idea of a polis, like a city-state. A city was a state, like a city, like even though you're in a state, you had your own rules within that city as well, right?
Yeah.
Now I think like a lot of the times what you'll see is people who will argue against federal government are really keen on really strong state government because their political party controls that state. It becomes less about the idea of less control over people, is more about their own political control based on their partisan ideology.
Well,
this is something I just see over and over and over again.
okay, well, I'm not going to dox myself, but I will tell you that that is not the case where I am currently. So you can dispel that particular motivation.
That's cool.
But generally why I'm okay with it is that just under the Constitution, the more local you get, the more police powers you get. And so I find it essentially the more local you get, the more and more legitimate it is for the government to be engaging in this kind of action. So that's essentially my logic. And it makes more sense too because like a really old area like with lots of old people that's really sensitive, like New York for a while. I mean until Cuomo messed up, had a lot of old people. So like if that area wants to like have hardcore quarantines and lockdown immigration, that's fine. But like if in like let's say theoretically California was red and like SoCal has like all young people, that's like a hub of industry that like can't survive without tourism. Like I don't think they should be held to the same standards because they're different. So that's essentially my argument on that front.
Yes, I guess that's sort of my point because like if you're familiar with California, you recognize like SoCal, Orange County is like very highly conservative, right? And
relative to the rest of California,
yeah. Like San Diego and Orange County like vote heavy conservative. Then you look at places like San Francisco, right? So I mean, shouldn't both these places have the ability to sort of adjust their rules and
absolutely
conduct? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like that's
we're on the same page, my guy.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, this sounds great, other than, that doesn't account for the fact that there are oftentimes political, actors who are incentivized by taking contrarian positions, and then will do the opposite for whatever the quote-unquote guidance or, the generous hand of the federal government says they ought to do.
That's like 25% of the people. It's not
For sheer contrarianism.
Sorry, Joel, I was about to invite you. You beat me to it.
Because hold on, Chad. This is where you get into the situation. Okay, so we all recognize that these different places are going to have different laws, but both these places are going to have the same laws, right? So that's the thing that we're going to have to focus on. Is like where these places are going to need to have the same kind of laws and rules to function correctly, right?
You're cutting off on the first part of your sentence. I'm not exactly following.
So I was saying that's what I'm pointing out initially is something I do truly believe is like different places should be able to have different rules that suit their populations correctly. But that doesn't mean they can disregard all rules completely and be like, okay, well up here, dude, well we all like to drunk drive, so we can fucking drunk drive. No, there's going to be certain laws that
a third-party regulatory body
everybody's going to have to abide by, and that's the point that I want to get to, right?
Yeah, so that's a federalist system. That makes sense. I'm here for that, provided there aren't ill actors that decide to, again, be contrarian and then just buck the rules.
So you mean people who disagree?
Yeah,
the rules. They're elected by the people that live in the area, right? So
that's
the will of the people.
No, when they so the libertarian problem, I guess, for lack of a better word, is the fact that I say this as a general day, it's not any specific.
Libertarian problem singular? That's being kind of nice.
There's one of the many. The libertarian problem tends to be the fact that it does not interact well with other people. So you can be as libertarian as you want, and you can have infinite amount of freedom, and that's awesome, and that sounds great until you start interacting with other people. And then again, as humans being a social species, you start to create larger and larger groups in which you have to exist. So when you have this like infinite focus on freedom, you end up just causing problems for the whole. So that's where we have to kind of pepper in a little bit of collectivism, to use that dirty word that I've heard here before, and start to temper our I guess, unfettered freedoms with the fact that, hey, you actually have to live next to somebody. Let's make sure that you are not infringing on their ability to exist, and vice versa.
Right, but
So-
like, I would argue that one does not have a right against getting sick. That's my point. Like,
Hold on, you were both talking at the same time.
Sorry, Aaron,
whoever
go
wants
first.
to go
He said
first.
exactly what I was. He said exactly what I was about to say. We're not dealing with something that you catch it and that's on you. We're dealing with something that is very contagious, where if you might get it and not even realize it, but then you might and very possibly will give it to someone who won't survive. And so it's. I don't think it's as simple as simply saying, we have the vaccine, your health is in your hands, because it's not just about your health. And as a matter of fact, in most cases, it isn't just about your health. Even when it comes to something like masks, you're not wearing a mask for you, you're wearing a mask to keep other people from getting sick, because we do all have to live together.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, most of the hospitalizations are the unvaccinated, right? So if
Yes.
you're vaccinated, typically you should be fine.
No, not at
And
all.
you only
Let me
affect people
give
that
you
chose
a
not to be
perfect
unvaccinated.
example of how that doesn't work. And those people still cause problems for the vaccinated.
Please.
So
please.
let's take this hypothetical, which is less hypothetical because it's actually happened. Say that I have a loved one that has to go to the hospital. Cool. Now we have to go out to our local hospital that is absolutely inundated with these unvaccinated people who made their personal risk assessment. Now, my loved one isn't able to get any assistance and has to wait 8 hours, literally 8 hours, for a possibly life-ending condition because someone decided not to take a vaccine, and then they got sick with another deadly virus that was entirely preventable. And again, your actions have consequences that reach far past your own existence. So even if you don't directly infect another person, your problems cause problems for others, and then that just compounds to the point of crisis where we're at now. So you can absolutely have an effect past infecting someone else. So all of those, the crisis of the the pandemic of the unvaccinated. Well, now you take up all the room in all the hospitals. So now the people who, I don't know, just broke a bone or are bleeding out or whatever, actually have diminished, diminished quality of care because of all the stress that your unvaccinated people are causing on the system. That's not okay. That's
I can make the same case for obese people.
Also, like if you have obesity, you're more likely to pack the hospitals, and people are less likely to get help.
Yeah, you could make the
Because of your choices in food.
Everybody's.
Hold on, let Doolittle get in. He hasn't spoken a lot. Doolittle and then everybody else.
Yeah, you could. You could make the same argument over any life choice. If everybody made perfect life choices all the time, we wouldn't have much need for hospitals, and they'd be much smaller. Whenever any wave of misfortune happens, then the people who happen to make the popular bad choice of the day are responsible for the bad health care of everybody else. So I'm not entirely against vaccinations or encouraging them, but I think there's better ways than authoritarian dictates to spur the human interest in getting vaccinations. There's all kinds of
I
ways.
agree on that, but
that
at
we
this
can,
point, those
there's all kinds of
incentives
ways that we
haven't
can
been
improve.
incentivizing people.
They haven't been used at all. Like, for example, one of the best incentives that almost everybody gets their health care via insurance systems, and it's entirely within the scope and reasonable action of insurance companies to charge a higher premium for people that haven't been vaccinated, so that they can pay for all the extra resources that the calculated.
I'm 100% for that.
Yeah, but
And so that, you know,
They have pre-existing conditions, discriminate based on pre-existing conditions.
well, here's the thing, guys. I mean, like, I think we're getting mired down in this argument once we start talking about these hypothetical and anecdotal situations about like what happens in a hospital. Like what I initially brought up
It's
was
not
this thing. It's
anecdotal.
like,
This is statistical evidence to show that it's
hold on,
overloaded.
That's anecdotal. That's anecdotal. Most
It's
anecdotal.
not.
hospitals are
It's
mostly
not. But
everything.
okay,
Chad,
sure.
stop. Like what you just mentioned, it was by definition anecdotal. You didn't mention any statistics. You just said, "Well, what if this and this and this and this?" That's anecdotal, and that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with
Well,
that. But
yes,
just
okay, all right.
follow me where I'm going, man.
I got you.
For a second.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is like so we've already agreed that there's two cities that we should be able to allow them their own leeway to do what they want to do that's best for their own citizens. So now if we have this one city who's a little bit further up on a river than this other one, and when this city that's further up on the river finds it's really beneficial for their citizens to just dump all their fucking waste in the river, right? And that city downstream was dependent on the fish and the life in that river in the first place. So regardless of going to a hospital or anything, like we're talking about people in like even if they're in separate cities and they're doing their own thing, there is this fundamental interconnectedness, like where this city one cannot do whatever they want for the mere fact that it's going to affect city two's output or like their ability to sustain their own situation, right? And this is something that we've seen fundamentally so often in life. It's like evidence for this is everywhere.
Just
Where
externalities.
people will take advantage of something and it's going to hurt another group of people, but they don't necessarily care because they're getting the benefit now, and like the damage that they're doing to that land, to those waterways and all that kind of stuff, they don't care because they're upstream. Everybody's downstream. So that's when you have to have something like a federal government to come in and say, look, okay, well, there's going to be certain things that we can't do here, right?
Sure.
If I may,
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel
I'm just real quick. I mean, like, would you agree with that, John? Like,
Yeah.
or
100%.
Yeah.
I would agree with the river example. I would agree that you can't have absolute freedom because at some point your freedoms infringe on other people's. My thing is I don't view, and I'm sure a lot of people disagree, and that's fine. I don't really view most illnesses as something that as direct as dumping toxic waste in a river. I mean, under the logic that I'm hearing here, like every human being should be mandated to get every vaccine known to man in order to protect other people. And I mean, maybe that's where the consistent logic goes, and maybe you guys agree with that. But to me, that seems somewhat absurd, and it's just not a conclusion that I really like. So I think that you don't have a right not to get. Now, I can't cough on you. I can't intentionally make you sick on purpose. But if I don't want to make a medical decision and that puts you at slightly higher risk if you choose to be around me, or then, like, at some point you just have to say, hey, life has a certain level of risk that's inescapable. And you have to assume it if you want to live and not live in it. Because, like, honestly, if you want to minimize all risk for everyone ever, nobody leave your house ever.
Yep.
You have to assume a level of risk. And for me, at the point where every human... Aaron, just 1 second. I'm going to finish up and then we're going to go to you. I promise. I promise.
But that's the thing. It's not reducing all levels of risk. It's like that'd be like saying like your level of risk is the same as driving on a road, as opposed to if your neighbor took like a tube off the back of his truck and just put it in your window. You know, like
Yeah, but that's direct.
There's a huge difference in level.
COVID transmission can be direct as well. Yeah. Are you guys familiar with what the laws were implemented in Italy in the middle of their first wave?
I'm very interested, but I promised Aaron. So let's go to Aaron and then back to you.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's not your fault. It's my fault.
Well,
Aaron, go
I
ahead.
love the people. I love the people who go, oh well, why don't we just wrap everybody in bubble wrap? Okay, first of all, not every risk is the same. Yes, every time you step outside of your house, every time you choose to wake up in the morning, there's a certain level of risk that you're going to have to face. And no one questions that. Here's the difference. We're all about, as a species, minimizing unnecessary risk. And it's pretty much been confirmed that we view COVID as an unnecessary risk. And we're trying to, as the species that is always trying to make our lives easier and more prosperous, something like a virus that has a vaccine that would allow us to go back to what we would call normal, I don't think that you can use that same leap of logic as something like people who complain about wearing seatbelts. Because it's like, one of those things is, well, I suppose in a sense you can kind of question, by your logic, why do people have to wear seatbelts, right? Like, why do people have to wear helmets if they ride a bike? But none of this is the point. The point is that in a feeble attempt to try to save everybody, which I admit, in your defense, you can't do. You can't save everybody. But we try.
Yeah.
We do our best to minimize unnecessary risk. And I think that most people would agree, we view pandemics and epidemics and viruses and bacteria as unnecessary risks. Otherwise, why did we make a vaccine in the first place?
Well, I mean, this is why I'm a pretty vaccine supportive human personally, and I think that certainly everybody above 18 should get it because it's just how the risk calculation pans out. So I mean, I really do agree with you overall. It's just the mandate thing that's grinding my gears a bit. But hanging Chad, you wanted to get in here, so hit me up.
Here's the main thing I wanted to say. I think that I can understand. I don't want the government to have that kind of power either. I don't want to be in a dictatorship, and I feel like a vaccine mandate is the first step to an authoritarian state. And I don't think anybody in America wants that, no matter where you stand. But I would say that the appropriate response kind of depends, to me at least, on how many people you want to save. If you want to save the majority of the population from even contracting COVID, then a mandate is not off the table. But if you accept that you can't save everybody and some people are going to die, then yeah, a mandate makes no sense, especially at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we have to distinguish between freedom and safety, right? So I think most people would be support vaccine mandate if that wasn't happening. If this was Black Plague, where 50% of people or 30% of people were dying because of this disease. But I think people view how deadly disease is differently. Some people would not say this is this would require vaccine mandates. The amount of risk that COVID possesses, which is less than 1% of people that get it, pass away, and most of them have some comorbidities like obesity or something like that. So I think there's a big difference between that and other diseases.
Yeah, and until it's your dad or grandpa or your mom or grandma that dies, then you're gonna be like, hey guys, fucking take the vaccine. This is something we've seen over and over. How many hardcore right-wing talk show radio hosts have come down with COVID and died now? It's
It's
5.
literally got a subreddit called Herman Cain Award.
And these guys were all against dude, vaccines are bullshit and it's the government trying to control you, and then they got it and all of them right off the bat please guys, I'm telling all my friends and family, just go get the vaccine, just do it, you don't want to deal with this. It's yeah, that's the fucking real world right there. That's the real world slapping you across the face with its fucking hard dick.
Even Republicans,
people who are vaccinated can still spread it, so that doesn't really affect. Those still affect people that get it, right?
No, the spread is lower. The vaccines are effective.
But
No, I don't think
even
anyone's arguing
Republicans
that.
who were adamantly against people getting the vaccine at first, even they had a wake-up call when they realized, fuck, if all the Republicans die of COVID, then no one's going to be, or most of them, or enough of them.
Yeah, no one's going to show up to vote.
We're not going to have anybody around to vote for us.
That's the to me the interesting thing about it is this whole idea. It seems like the whole idea of it coming down to a personal rights issue is something that has been painted by the Republican Party as a political message with COVID from the fucking start. It's fucking weird, dude.
Does that make it wrong?
It makes no sense at all. Like, because you go back 50 years and conservatives were the people who were like, dude, everybody's got to get vaccinated. Like, this is just the way it is. Like, these are the people who were like, we are like, that 50 years ago, like, conservatives were not these like hardcore like anti-government fucking weirdos they are now. It seems to me like what happened in the 60s and 70s with the liberals, it took a long time. It took 50 years for it to infect like conservative thinking, but now conservatives have it and they're turning into like
Got
all
a theory about that. We'll discuss in the war chat.
all the weird like crystal moms now, all like the weird like fucking hippie crystal mom ladies.
Yeah.
All seem to be conservative now. It's like, what in the world is going on?
What changed?
Hey, Chad, you want to talk about Italy?
Like conservatives were in power of the institutions. Now it's liberals.
Right.
So now they're not in power anymore. Therefore, more individual rights.
Yeah.
I do think we should get to this conversation.
Those people are just fundamentally reactionaries, and whoever's in power, they just hate. So that's definitely not somebody you want to follow if you're looking at any sort of moral or intellectual leadership, right?
As fascinating as this conversation is about the political persuasions of crystal moms throughout the ages, I don't think it's exactly our topic. Maybe I'll pick it for next time. Hanging Chad. Hanging Chad, you want to talk about laws in Italy or something? Please.
You're the fucking man.
Here's a weird tie in. The thing is, I don't know if you've noticed, but in times of crisis, people in America tend to turn towards leadership. And if you're proposing that leadership isn't allowed to say, I'm going to mandate that everybody get the damn vaccine, why even turn to leadership in this case?
The leadership can say, hey, these vaccines are effective. They're honestly a scientific miracle, and they will offer you, and especially your loved ones who are vulnerable, a great level of protection. I advise you to go get it. That would probably get more people vaccinated than this. See, this is something that we haven't talked about yet, is the sociological impact of the mandate. Some people...
And any more Republicans get vaccinated.
Yeah, if Trump actually came out and said that off the get-go, I think it might have worked. Because here's the thing, Hanging Chad, you were talking about contrarians, right? I think that there might have been this element where basically, because the government started like forcing the issue, all the libertarian-minded contrarians and conservatives were like, hell to the no, I'm not taking this thing. And it was the same thing when Trump was doing Operation Warp Speed. Like a lot of people on the left on Twitter were talking, I will never trust a vaccine created by Trump, blah, blah, blah.
No, you're right.
And I think when you mandate things, it just gets people's conspiratorial juices working harder, and their urge to be like a romantic rebel to go harder. I honestly think that these mandates are gonna retard the amount of vaccinations simply because people want to be defiant. I think just trying to reasonably convince people and advocate both sides of the aisle, advocating to their bases, hey, this will probably protect you, you should probably go get it. I'm pretty sure that would be more effective, as well as more constitutional and legal. But that's just my
legal decision more than, because I don't think the vaccine mandate is in effect right now. Like, it's going to go up to the courts. You're
right. I mean, this doesn't stand.
Do anything.
You're right. I very much doubt this stance. That's why I'm not really. That's why I'm not really freaked out or anything. I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court's gonna knock this down. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't doubt it.
What do you think about this, Chad? Though, about the contrarian argument?
So I 100% agree to a certain extent.
Oh,
so every issue that's ever existed has been used as a political prop at some point. With Trump, it was absolutely like, hey, guess what? The economy is doing great, and we're going to throw all the money at the wall and hope that a vaccine comes out of it.
It worked somehow.
Honestly I'm impressed. It actually did work. It put a few $1 million in the pocket of Moderna and Pfizer, and they pumped out a vaccine. Cool, great.
Big pharma for awesome. The win. Once broken clock, right?
Yeah, or like my favorite saying is, you can put a monkey in front of a dartboard and he's going to hit a bullseye eventually.
Yeah.
Shit.
Sure.
But yeah, 100%. So here's a vaccine that is repeatedly shown to be incredibly effective and honestly safer than we had ever hoped it could be.
In the short term, at least. We don't know long term, but yeah, I see your point.
No, we do have significant amount of, I guess, confidence in its ability to be safe in the long term.
Yeah, like, which is why I got it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Every single issue that has come up so far has been debunked or rectified or clarified so far. I mean, it's just simply the case. Now, from there, I do think that there is a significant amount of misinformation and disinformation that's been propagated primarily by right-wing audiences because they tend to eat it up a little bit better than left-wing audiences do. That
probably would not be the case if President Trump was still in office. They would probably be absolutely reversed. But I see what you mean.
Not at all.
Agree.
So as a general rule, conservatives tend to be more oriented towards an alienated other and fighting against that other. Therefore, that oftentimes is the vehicle through which misinformation is spread, and it has been shown to specifically target Republicans / conservatives / that sort of, I guess, right-wing ideology more often than left-wing ideology.
Well, it didn't help that in the beginning, like Fauci was like, mass doesn't work, and he constantly lied, right?
Trust in institutions took an absolute nosedive.
Who said that real quick?
Raul, he was 100% correct.
Yeah, Raul, you're actually both very wrong about that. So the fact that you have pointed blame specifically at Fauci is interesting. And why do you think that is? When Fauci was working under Trump administration, right? So he was an employee of Trump, let's say that. I agree that it was absolutely stupid of them to try to get ahead of a short run on masks by saying that they weren't effective and that, they probably won't do anything. That was absolutely a misstep. That is honestly, I mean, you can't really excuse it. But they had a reason, and it wasn't malicious. I think it was just incompetent.
Yeah, but then...
Well, they lied on purpose.
Yeah, right? Well, even, the problem is, even if the reason is fine, it means that people aren't going to trust you again, and that's the issue.
Well, for sure. Now, is that a Fauci problem, or is that an administration problem?
That's a social problem in terms of getting people to get the vaccine.
They should have fired him as soon as he was found out lying about the effectiveness of masks. He should be out and completely out of the public influence sphere.
I mean, yeah, if that's how you feel, sure.
For fabricating a lie like that, undermines the trust of every single person in the U.S. government and all the institutions of people that are trying to
and the U.S. and the American people already didn't the government that much.
Well, that time, Lebowski.
That's the thing. But that's the thing. To determine somebody fabricated a lie, you're going to need a lot of information, as opposed to maybe somebody just misspoke.
Yeah, he literally went on TV and admitted it. So
hold on. Well, especially compared to somebody like Trump, who's gone on TV and said all sorts of fucking crazy shit. It's oh, well, Trump just misspoke. Why didn't Fauci just speak?
Because Fauci admitted that he said it. Because Fauci said it.
Liars.
Because Fauci admitted
one or the other.
No, it's not one or the other, but all of a sudden you're placing these two different people in a group where it says Fauci has to be 100% valid with everything he says, or else he's wrong, and that's not necessarily the case.
No.
Even if you go to a doctor, even your normal practicing doctor you go to, you might go and see him hey man, I'm feeling this way, and they're okay, based off everything I'm hearing, I think it's gonna be this, and they're gonna prescribe you something. And you come back later and oh, well, I'm still feeling this, and I'm okay, well, so maybe that's not what it was, and they're gonna go down different levels of prescription to figure out what the actual problem is, because nobody has a magic wand to just say, hey, this is what the actual problem is, and here's this solution.
Well, there's a difference between lying and getting something wrong, right?
No. We're all human beings just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. To try and say somebody who's in a medical profession is this person who's just trying to manipulate people. It's the same kind of thing as saying, oh, well, because this person happens to work in a corporation, they're just like a lying, distrustful, deceitful piece of shit. Like, those things are both wrong on both sides, right? I mean, everybody has to recognize that. This is so normal in life, right? Like you can see every side who's going to call out the other side for any of the slightest fucking missteps. And if you don't have, if you have like all the leeway in the world for your team when they have a misstep, but when the other team has a misstep, you're like, oh no, that's because it was on purpose and they were doing this and they were doing this and they were doing this. That's when I have a problem. That's when I think, hey man, maybe you're getting caught up in something.
Doolittle?
Like, I don't know.
Hold on.
Like, if both sides lie,
Raul.
you should call out both sides.
Raul, hold on. You've been here the whole time, and I've heard you talk, but we need to get Doolittle in here. Doolittle.
Yeah, I was talking to Doolittle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with you in 90% of cases, but
Yeah.
let me tell you where we probably can agree, at least if we agree on the facts. Fauci came out not too long after he gave the public statement that the masks don't work, especially for normal people that don't know how to use them, etc. And when the CDC changed their guidance to say, okay, everyone has to wear masks, and we know they recommend mask mandates and social distancing and this other thing. He came in and he said, yeah, we knew that masks work, and we needed masks for the frontline workers, and that's why we recommended people don't use them in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he admitted in public that he was lying to you on purpose to manipulate you so that he could get what he wanted.
No. Hold on. You can't divorce him from the administration in which he was working. Because notice how.
So in most other cases, when somebody makes a big misstep in public or gets caught with something that really pisses off a really large number of people, they get fired. They get held accountable.
In some cases.
And at least they might still have some nominal job where they're doing work, but people will get fired, and they won't be the front man of public speaking once they lose the full faith and confidence of the people that are their audience.
I'd also like to
In this case, that got good.
All right, Aaron, and then Caldwell, because he hopped in a while ago. So Aaron, you go, and then Caldwell.
Aaron, please, yeah.
Well, I just quickly like to say, it's all fine and dandy to say we're all human beings and we all make mistakes, but I'm sorry, there's no excuse for not being transparent. If Anthony Fauci didn't really have that much information at the beginning of the pandemic, what the hell is the problem with just saying that? Like, listen, we need these masks for healthcare workers right now. We don't know a whole lot about this thing. We're still learning it. We'll tell you as soon as we know something concrete. Is that so hard? Like, there's a difference between making a mistake and just not being fucking honest.
Right.
There's definitely a problem there. Right? So, yeah, I just don't think, especially in the world of politics, that's a problem many people actually worry about, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Like, I do agree with you. Like, yeah, like I don't think it should be that way, but I see it is that way. So I don't know what we do about it other than dealing with the way it is. I don't know.
Caldwell, what do you think? Federal mask mandates, not vaccine, rather, not masks. Sorry, the alliteration may be wrong. What's your give us your hot take? Going once, going twice. Oh, I got a message. Sold, but not to you, Caldwell. Okay, you guys take over and I'll translate. Hold on.
Alright.
Okay, he's just here to listen. Caldwell's just here to listen. He messaged me.
I did just look this up. Like, the only mandate that Biden has passed has anything to do with federal workers, and that's something.
No, that's not right. He mandated.
I just looked it up right now. Tell me the mandate that you're talking
The mandate is that businesses with 100 employees or more have to force their employees to either one, get vaccinated, or two, produce a weekly negative COVID test, which, by the way, is wicked expensive. And if they fail to comply, they get fined the hell. Huh?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
No problem.
Really?
Those
No.
businesses, like I'm looking at it right now, those businesses, like when they say that, those businesses are actually businesses that are taking money from the federal government. So since they're taking that money from the federal government.
Okay, well now you're making me feel like I'm
No, it's
crazy.
OSHA regular.
Yeah, I do think it's a little more wide-reaching.
You're making me feel like I'm crazy. Give me a
Yeah,
second.
the mechanism that he's able to do that with is through
It is through OSHA, that's true.
Vaccine, OSHA.
Yeah, but I mean, like the cost of getting a test once a week is about
Astronomical.
I don't know. You go to CVS, you get 2 tests for $20. I think if you're buying lots of 1,000,
Yeah,
they're
bulk.
like $6 a test. So if you got 100 employees, 10 weeks of tests is going to cost you like $6,000. Like as opposed to their salary, which is going to be $600.
Hey John, can I test your consistency quickly?
Oh, I love it. I love having my consistency tested. And then we'll go to some of the new people.
If you are adamantly against the federal government mandating a vaccine,
I mean, you guys are softening me up a little bit, but yeah, sure.
would you be against the say what Ron DeSantis did in Florida, which is putting fines in place for individual businesses and institutions that do mandate?
That mandate that their customers have vaccines before they come in?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, 100%. It's the same problem. Like, okay, well, since he's state, you can make a more convincing argument since he's more local. But if he was doing that at the federal level, I would 100% be against it because it's the same thing mandating private businesses how to run their business. And in not just like, especially in regards to like medical decisions. Like I don't think that the government has a role in that, especially on the federal level. I don't really think it was okay for DeSantis to do that on the state level either, personally. So I mean, I hope that's consistent for you.
So Delta, just to talk about the consistency of that mandate with current common law, employers already have a duty to protect their employees.
Yeah.
So if you have as much as a wet floor and somebody slips and falls on it, the employer is liable for the safety of the
Right. I mean,
so if we have a known hazard that's detectable, it would absolutely be a violation of the company's duties.
I mean,
Not protect its employees.
well, see, that feels more like an argument that would.
OSHA is extensive. Like, if you've never
Well, okay, yeah. First of all,
I know.
so yeah. So first of all, I think the OSHA laws are probably a little bit too far-reaching. But even assuming that, I didn't think that. That to me, Doolittle, sounds like an argument that businesses have to like provide the opportunity for their employees to get vaccinated, which is different than.
I'm talking about the testing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So if you know there's a pandemic and there's a good chance that someone's going to come in to your business and or another employee if you work in an office building even, and if you don't do something, if you don't do a reasonable amount of effort to guarantee or to protect your other employees from a reasonably well-known harm that's detectable, and it's not onerous to give somebody a test once a week. Like, I think everyone should just get a test. Like, if we could just distribute tests to everybody, and let's just test everybody right now. And if you test positive, then everyone you've touched for the last week quarantines for 2 weeks, and then we're done with it.
That's pretty honest.
I'd be here for it. I'd be here for it.
That's very true too, Dr. Doolittle. So the cost of vaccines, that is something that does scale up. We were talking about like scaling up earlier. So it's like an individual cost of not a vaccine, of a test might be like might be like $100, $200, $300.
It's $20 for two right now at CVS.
Yeah, $20 for two. So if all of a sudden you as a company be like, okay, I've got 20,000 workers and we're going to need them to be tested. That company is going to be like, okay, we'll charge each of these tests $5 because they know they're going to make a load of money and they're going to be good.
Even 100 employees, like what are you getting up to? It's like 1,000, right? Like 1,000 a week for a business with just like.
So I looked at. I'm looking at it right now. So requiring all employees with 100 plus requiring all employers with 100 plus employees to ensure their workers are vaccinated or tested weekly. This requirement will impact over 80 million workers. 80 million workers. And how big is the American workforce? We were talking about.
That's how many people are in employers with over 100.
Exactly. It's
and half have already been vaccinated, so it's 40 million.
It's a pretty small amount.
If I may, before you maybe get into the.
Yeah, I was about to kick it over to some of the new people. So, Aaron, go ahead, and I'm going to kick it to some of the new people because we got 3 I want to get takes on. So, real quick, Aaron.
I would just like to acknowledge that the initial opposition to a vaccine mandate is yet another chapter in the seemingly perpetual story of how much influence should the federal government actually have in people's lives. This is where you get into the conservatives versus liberals versus the every other ism thing. This is the eternal struggle. I personally believe in personal responsibility. I don't believe that it should be society's problem that individual people make stupid fucking decisions. That I don't feel like the rest of us should have to bear the burden for every individual's dumbass decision. But at some point, you have to ask the question, then why do we mandate seatbelts or speed limits? Or like why is it alcohol banned? You know how many people die of
alcohol is dangerous as fuck. You actually have an argument there. Okay.
And it's not like you're gonna catch everybody who drinks and drives. So this is the eternal question, and I don't think there's a good answer.
What exact risk level qualifies as something akin to reckless endangerment? Because it's somewhere between drunk driving and being a human being that can possibly have a run-of-the-mill sickness. Because run-of-the-mill sickness, not including COVID, that's an acceptable level of risk, or seem to be, and drunk driving isn't. And all of this could be, somewhere in there is the line of where reckless endangerment is no longer suitable. And I think we have to figure out exactly where that line is.
Exactly. That John, that's the exact reason why I asked the question earlier of like how many people how many people would die that like at a certain point that like okay, a government mandate would be acceptable.
Lebowski, how long did it take for me to get to where you were already at? What, an hour? It took me an hour to catch up. All right. Simba.
Question of how many,
Yeah.
I also asked the question of how many people do you want to save? So,
yeah, it's very similar. I get it. You guys are ahead of me. I understand. It's okay. Simba, we want your hot takes, and then we have a couple new people after you. So give us your 30-second hot take. Federal vaccine mandates on private businesses.
I just joined and didn't hear all the things before, but
yes, tell us what you think.
Vaccine mandates on private businesses. No, you don't want to mandate vaccines on private businesses.
What if it's vaccines or weekly negative COVID tests? One of the two.
Oh, we're talking about forcing the government, not the business, right? Are we talking?
No, the government is forcing businesses to force their employees. It's very convoluted.
Okay, so the government forcing, no. I think business owners can obviously make this decision.
Okay.
And institute it within themselves.
Okay, great.
No, I wouldn't.
Thank you for your hot take. I'm sure you will be attacked for it later, and it will be awesome. Zaverfang, please give us your hot take we're going rapid lightning round real quick, and then we'll get back into discussion. Going once, Zeverfang. Going twice. Oh, there he is.
On the same boat as Simba.
Ooh.
No, as well. If the employer wants to tell the employee to be vaccinated, well, it shouldn't be mandated by the government.
Why not? Is it an authority? Do you think it's like a governmental authority thing, or do you think it's just the wrong thing to do, or both?
I think it's like a governmental authority thing.
What about if it was like more local? Like, what if your like city council decided it for its city? Would that be cool?
Still government.
Still government? Okay. Oh God, going villain before anybody is kind of dangerous because I might never get to the
say
next
this
guy.
under the pretense of COVID with the fatality rate of COVID or the flu or that degree.
Sure.
Obviously, a pandemic that gets to a point of 30-40% of the contagious.
Right.
Yes.
Sure. There's a level.
I think
There's 100% a
I think you
level.
mentioned that with the line. We don't know where the line is. My line, we're not there yet, but I can see how other people would be there.
Krillis Dragnil, villain. I'm skipping you just because I know you're gonna do a barn burner, so you're the grand finale. I promise I didn't forget about you. Krillis Dragnil, hot take, 30 seconds. Federal vaccine mandates.
I actually do not think that it should be mandatory. Companies should not force anyone because we still don't have a full research on it. I believe I'm not sure if we can sorry, I'm running out of words.
It's okay, I understand.
If we can agree with the results currently, because you never know what may show up in the future, the side effects.
Yeah, I mean, that's a thing. We're pretty confident. The research process was pretty extreme, and we're pretty confident that long-term effects will be okay. But technically, since the long-term doesn't actually exist yet, because it hasn't been very long, I mean, you're right. We don't know for sure empirically. So that's not untrue. Okay, villain. What do you think about vaccine mandates? 30-second hot take. Lay it on
30
us.
seconds. 30 seconds.
I mean that's a soft deadline. That's a soft time limit. Oh no!
He's like, no.
Villain's like 30 seconds. I can't do it. I'm gone.
I said it was a soft time limit. I went back on it. Oh, he's back. Villain, please lay it on us. Your hot take. We want to know. We're so curious. I'm curious anyway. I can't speak for everyone else.
I'm against it. It's ludicrous.
All right.
The whole idea of vaccines, other people need to be should we start spraying other people with sunscreen so that our sunscreen works? It's nonsense. We've already dealt with this in the 90s with the Ryan White laws and barring people from businesses from having AIDS. They made specific laws surrounding destigmatizing people with diseases, and that you can't have businesses determining access to their business versus via diseases. And then all of a sudden, when it's in favor of stigmatizing people, we just change it completely. Yeah, let's not make everybody wear sunscreen just because our sunscreen will work better if everybody else is wearing sunscreen. It's ludicrous. It makes no sense.
Hanging chat. I imagine you're going to want to respond to that, so I'm going to give you first. First dibs, and then we'll open the room.
Sure, yeah. So that's not the way the vaccines work. I'm not sure I understand the sunscreen analogy at all, but okay. From there, it's actually really interesting that you bring up the AIDS laws, because that is something that I've heard before, and I kind of find that interesting, if nothing else. I disagree with the lack of care. I would say that goes into just outwardly dismissing the necessity at this point for vaccine mandates, just sheerly because, I mean, COVID has been shown to be such a damaging virus, both to the economy, to people's lives, to people's long-term health. And it's interesting everyone keeps bringing up long-term effects of the vaccine, because as of right now, every indication shows that COVID infection is significantly more damaging in the long term than 99.999% of any vaccine recipients. So, I mean, look up long-term COVID. It's actually really, just sad, if nothing else. But yeah, at the end of the day, I
Long-term COVID amongst obese people.
it's called long haul COVID. It actually, as of
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
there are
Obese
studies. No, it's literally everyone who gets infected has the chance to have some sort of long-term effects from COVID.
Is that
anything
unique to
from-
COVID, or are other respiratory diseases have this risk?
No, not at all. It's
It's not
far
rare.
more frequent than 1 in
So
10,000.
Yeah,
It doesn't
The
have
problem
to
with
help.
long-term COVID, it goes anything from actual encephalopathy, which is the swelling of your brain to the point where you can't function. That's in mild cases that tends to be called brain fog, where you just can't, you're not cognitively there, all the way down to just permanent cardiovascular damage. There's a significant amount of blood clotting issues that come out of that as well. ED is a big one as well. We're figuring out a lot of guys just can't get it up after getting infected with COVID because their blood
Who's
just
we?
quite simply can't. The scientific community as a whole, I'll
Are you a
say.
scientist or a doctor?
So, I'm sorry, I don't remember specifically talking about. Let's continue.
Hold on, Doolittle.
So,
They, right? They.
past that,
Hold on. Everybody chill out, Chad, and then we're gonna go to Doolittle.
the neurological degeneration is significantly worse as well in patients who have had COVID, considering that some antibodies that are created act similarly, if I remember right, to Guillain-Barré syndrome, in which case the myelin sheaths on your nerves just get eaten away by your own antibodies, and it gets to a point where small fiber neuropathy and other neuropathy in general, it's really bad.
That's called Guillain-Barré syndrome.
I don't speak.
Also,
That's what it's called. I had a buddy had Guillain-Barré. It's really fucked up. To me, like, I just want to go back to more of the basic meat and bones of the question, right? So already we've come to the point where we agreed there would be a certain point where the infection took over so much where you would accept federal response to it.
100%.
So that's the case. So we can accept that. So if we're talking about a business at this point, so if a business recognizes that that it's within their own business interest, that they should be able to do the same thing, right? Because all of a sudden the topic went over to these any kind of business with over 100 employees. So in these kind of situations, like a business with 100 employees, like what kind of businesses do you think those are? Do you think that's like sort of like a smaller place, like it's a mom and pop kind of company, or do you think that's like a Walmart or Best Buy? And with a Walmart or a Best Buy, you recognize that these places are drastically in the position, overwhelmingly in the position of being customer facing. So any time a business that has more than 100 employees, they tend to be like a larger retail store. It's definitely bigger than larger mom and pop store. You're talking about a chain at least, right? So in any sort of chain, you have people who are regularly interacting with the public. So isn't there some sort of predicated responsibility on those businesses to protect their customers?
No. And I've never been in a Walmart and been struck by the customers' concern for their health care.
So you don't think a Walmart has any concern to have like a security guard there in case?
No, it's a fundamental like foundational flaw in thinking. Like, no, people have the right and the responsibility to protect their own health care. There's no corporate or government need to like nanny state everyone and protect everyone.
Is there? Hey, hold on, Villain.
It's not a corporate or government need. It's like it's the recognition that corporation knows that if we let this kind of behavior happen repeatedly at our establishment, we're gonna lose business. So in that situation, they have every right in the fucking world to say, okay, we can't do this.
And that's what I was saying about my
Well, this is where I'm getting into. Well, this
I've
is
never
where-
once been in a Walmart and felt like the customers were overly concerned with their health care.
Yeah, that's these are anecdotal arguments.
No, it's not anecdotal. Like,
Yeah,
say
that's
Walmart, you use Walmart.
anecdotal.
Say Walmart has a duty to protect the healthcare of their customers.
A duty, no, but
like,
maybe an
they
interest.
sell their customers ungodly amounts of unhealthy food, and their
That's
customers are largely. You go into any Walmart anywhere in America, and you're going to see the majority of customers are unhealthy people, morbidly obese.
I didn't say duty. I said self-interest. Like they have a
Yeah, if
self-interest.
they had a self-interest to worry about their customers' health, they wouldn't sell the most of the products they sell to their customers.
The customers buy that. So like if
Yeah, I agree. So
want
the
Cheetos,
customer has
that's
the
fucking-
responsibility and the right to make their own decisions, and the customer can have their right and responsibility to make their own decisions
Yeah.
about.
And so Villain,
Can I be on Villain's side for a second, please? Can I come to Villain's? He doesn't
Give me
need
a
my
yes and.
defense. Can I
Give
come
me
to
a
his
yes and.
defense?
Please.
Yeah, but hold on.
Well, it's not a yes and. It's not.
No, Aaron, go ahead.
Well,
let me give you
go
an
and
example.
then I'll completely blow you.
Let me-
I want to say one.
Okay, Lebowski and then Aaron. Lebowski, one more thing, and then
I just
Aaron.
want to say one sentence real quick. In Walmart, nobody else is forcing somebody else to eat Cheetos, right? So that person could buy Cheetos. They're not forcing somebody else to eat Cheetos. Go ahead, and that's it.
So, Villain said that these businesses don't. What did you say? Let me not misquote you.
Villain, what'd you say?
Villain, what?
Protect the health of their customers.
Let me give you the example.
My healthcare is nobody's business but my own. There's no duty for some government or some corporation to make healthcare choices for me. It's ludicrous. It's my right. It's my personal. It's my business. It's my private business. It's nobody else's business, and it's
your
definitely nobody else's
responsibility.
duty.
Yeah. Let me give you the example that comes to mind for me. You can call this anecdotal, but it's literally everywhere you see these. So that's the huge anecdote. Every night when I'm on the road, I park in the truck stop. And you know what? I park in these truck stops knowing damn well that if someone goes around slashing tires, or if someone tries to break into my truck, it is not the problem of the people who run the truck stop. It's my problem. There's a reason why you go into certain businesses and they even have signs that say we are not responsible for lost or stolen property. Trucks that I pass hauling rocks that say we are not responsible for broken windshields. Just saying, Villain's got a point.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that's
A lot of these companies intentionally, like Coca-Cola, poison their customers into getting diabetes and cancer with like these products that they pitching in the first place. So like if it was their responsibility to protect customers from their health, they're doing the exact opposite. They're literally killing customers, like McDonald's and all these stores that push these products that are addictive. So even if some people might not be willing to buy in the first place, once they buy it, they're more willing to buy it because of the addiction element in the first place.
I was going to say, isn't that just evidence that this free market idea isn't quite as sustainable as we originally thought?
As long as people are stupid and choose to spend money on shit that's bad for them, yeah.
No, I think we're on
I'm
the same
very
page.
shocked that the guy that is arguing for vaccine mandates is also arguing that capitalism isn't so great. I'm shocked. I tell you.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, he is.
I actually wanted to ask about that, Villain. So you tend to take more of a damn near anarchist standpoint from this. So just to clarify for my own, I guess, ability here, what do you think ought to be the ultimate goal of government, or what do you think ought to be the goal of government?
We can explore this, and then we're going to go back to the main topic. So go ahead, guys.
From becoming a worse government.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That was just clarification.
Sorry, would you say? Don't repeat that. My fault.
I said that government should be as small as possible, with the small as possible, while still being able to keep gangs of bad people from becoming a worse government.
Okay. So, Villain, I have a question for you, and I think this will segue well into our main point and the meat and potatoes of this. Is there any reality, any viral disease that say that is of a level of contagiousness or of a level of deadliness that you would be in favor of government action? And I'm not trying to play gotcha with you here. I don't do that. I'm pretty sympathetic to the libertarian thing. I'm just kind of curious to see where you're at.
I don't know. We could make up all kinds of what ifs, but this we can deal with what really is happening. And
Yeah.
This scamdemic, fake plague that's 99% survival rate of the people that actually even get it.
Okay, first of all, I love that term, and I've never heard it
Everybody knows
before.
it. Because if you actually believed it was a real plague, you would take more precautions. You
No,
wouldn't
I mean, I
actually go out
agree.
in
I
public.
think
You wouldn't go
I-
to the movie theater. You
No,
wouldn't just go
villain.
randomly shopping. You would only go out every once in a while for necessities, and it's ludicrous. Everybody knows this is not real. Everybody knows. The
Villain.
only people that are afraid it's real are mentally ill people or people that are so scared out of their mind that they can't think.
Okay, hold on,
Every
villain.
rational person knows
Okay,
it's
I actually have to
not
stop you
real.
now.
It's
Villain,
not a
stop.
threat to
Villain,
society. It's not a threat to the
villain,
world.
villain, stop.
Everybody knows it's
Villain,
not real.
villain.
Stop.
Look, I'm actually very sympathetic.
Science, my-
No, hold on, Aaron. I gotta do this. This is mod time. I am very sympathetic to your argument. Like, I really am. I get it. I also don't think COVID reaches a threshold of danger that puts us in the reckless endangerment category. I actually agree with you. But you know full well that there are people who are worried about COVID, and you just called those people mentally ill. That's called an ad hominem attack. We're not allowed to do that. As funny as it was. So I just wanted to let you know
No,
that
that
you
wasn't
can't.
an ad hominem attack, and I'm allowed to speak freely. I'm
You're
giving
allowed to
my
speak
opinion about
freely,
ad
but
hominem
we have
attack.
rules on the server, my guy. Private
No,
business.
I'm not. None of you guys are actually.
Bro.
I'm saying that you guys aren't scared of it. I'm saying that the only people that are actually scared of this are mentally ill people.
So either they're
People that are
dishonest or they're
so
mentally ill.
terrified by the news media that they're not thinking right. None of you guys are scared
Whatever
of it.
you say, man.
Well, I got the first one.
Mass delusions are kind of temporary mental illness.
Yeah, okay. Whatever you say.
We are in the greatest mass psychosis
Yes,
that's ever
dear.
happened in this race. It's the
Yes,
first mass
honey.
psychosis that's been able to happen across the entire globe.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so can we jump in on that or?
Yeah, go ahead. I think we're okay for now. Oh, go ahead, Matt. You haven't talked a lot. Zaberfang.
What?
Go ahead,
Yeah, go
Zaberfang. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also take villain stance because where I am now, the quality of life for people isn't impacted. Like, I'm in Nigeria and we haven't had any lockdowns, and like people just go on with their lives. People don't wear masks and stuff, and everything is still normal. Like, it's people think that it's mythical, that it's just a first world hysteria, and people just like like people don't act as if COVID even exists over here. So it's like
Can I ask
mythical.
you a
Like
question on a side note? You said Nigeria, right?
yes.
Why do you have that accent and you live in Nigeria?
Well, I went to a private school where they did elocution. So, alright. So
I agree with what
I'm
you're saying though.
I'm
Look at
looking
Brazil. Brazil's totally like just saying "fuck you" to the world. We're not playing this game. And
Yeah, they're dying in massive numbers, but okay.
That's not true.
It is true. So, other than the just
Israel.
complete
Like, they're the most vaccinated country in the world.
Hold on. No talking over each other. That's not a thing. Raul, your
all of
turn.
the science.
Raul, your
Go
turn.
ahead.
Raul,
Go
it's your
for it.
turn.
Okay, so just look at Israel. Like Israel, like they're doing the third vaccination, and now they're talking about the fourth, and their hospital rates are going up. The death rates is going up. So like this
Yeah, I heard about that.
I'm pro-vaccine, but this vaccine is not necessarily going to solve all the problems. Like something like you have to take personal responsibility of health, like exercising and other stuff. Like vaccines not all save all solutions.
Of course.
Like yeah,
Actually, Israel is a good question. It is very strange.
Back to the world, like people are already back in the world in the first place. Like this pandemic has become an endemic, but it's something we have to live with. So you can't say like mandating vaccines are necessarily going to solve anything, because even with vaccines, it might not solve the problem in the first place.
So yeah, that goes back to the very first point I made. Here, let me jump in for a second here.
Yeah, hanging, and then
remember when
Chad, your turn, and then Chris Kafka, because you just hopped in. Your turn first, and then Chris after.
The vaccine is never meant to be a magic bullet to solve anything and everything. It's another step towards damage mitigation, sadly. Because we had the opportunity at the beginning of this entire thing to take steps to mitigate the problem, and we bungled every single step on the way to here. It's like falling out of a tree and hitting every branch on the way down. So, due to a myriad of cultural problems, a myriad of just media literacy problems, and just political,
geopolitical issues,
malicious actors, we have gotten to a point where everything we've done has failed, and it has failed repeatedly. So now, again, on the back foot, we're deciding, okay, well, this vaccine is effective. It does absolutely help mitigate this risk. We need to start doing it as a kind of a last-ditch effort. I don't see anything wrong with that, frankly. If everyone were to, start out with better hygiene, cool, great, that's the first step. Start wearing masks, cool, that's another thing. If we did all of these things in tandem, COVID wouldn't have been a problem and wouldn't be the problem that it is now. But we decided every step of the way to botch it, and then look at where we are now. So I don't understand the venomous opposition to the vaccine, considering how just mundane and it's just disappointing more than anything else. But wanted to get that in there. I'd recommend looking into the science a little bit more. If you genuinely don't believe it's real, there's no, reason to try to discuss, because it's not a position that's held in any rational sense. I can shoot you some DMs if you want sources that state that it's real.
Using your opinion as truth and other people's opposing opinion as not truth.
If that's how you feel, again, it's valid. I'm not going to continue this.
Shush, one at a time, Villain, go. And I need to hear what you're actually saying. So, go. We'll see.
If I think it's not real because of what I see around me, like if everyone over here thinks it's mythical, and what am I trying to say?
Are hospitals overrun in Nigeria?
What?
Are hospitals overrun with people with some sort of pneumonia-like disease?
No, not at all.
They're not in the U.S. either.
Yes, they are. Oh my freaking god. Not all of them, no, but there are
many videos coming out showing the hospital that there's many ER doctors saying that it's
literally time by time.
Hey, one at a time. Come on, hold on. One at a time.
Focus on presenting your opinion as truth.
Villain, you're presenting your opinion as truth. Congratulations. Everybody here believes what they're saying is true.
Honestly, it's crazy.
I say facts. I don't say that the consensus is, or we have found it to be this, or the science shows. I say what I believe, and then I say why I believe what I believe. I don't gaslight people.
Well, okay, villain, hold on. Hold on, everybody, my time. It's my time. Villain, hold on. The word gaslighting implies intent to deceive. That's what that implies. Do you think Hating Chad is intentionally trying to...
I don't think the gaslighting necessarily is an intent to deceive. It's an intent to control.
Well, the story I always heard was the husband who drove his wife to suicide on purpose by telling her the light was the same level. That always implied intent to me, but if that's not how you meant it, then you're okay.
I don't think you have to have intent to gaslight. Some people can just be delusional.
Okay, well, you can... Okay, well, I guess that's technically in the rules. So, alright, go off.
I was just going to suggest that whenever we have someone's making a fact claim where we would be able to find some data, if we just did some Google searching, we should probably engage with that so we can post just to support people's arguments when they make a claim like, okay, our hospital's actually overrun in this part of the world. Let's see what's being reported, and then we can, have a conversation about the validity of the reporting if you want. But let's always try to cite some actual information.
All right, so hanging Chad. So yeah, all that stuff you're talking about, like throw up some sources in the live text, and when they get up there, we can talk about them. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I would like also
Before we
to.
go, may I please get
Oh
my
yeah,
last
go
word?
ahead.
Sure, Aaron.
Do your thing.
Okay, so I want to respond directly to Villain because I like you.
I like Villain too.
You're
Villain's been causing
great.
this.
Now,
I wish
here's what
I
I would
liked me as much as you guys liked me.
I don't like myself either, don't worry about it. So, here's what I'll say. I think that on a certain level, I completely understand where you're coming from. COVID is real. I don't think anybody with a functioning brain will deny that. But the hysteria around it,
100%.
with it only having a 0% death rate, here's the thing you gotta remember, Villain. I've said it many times, and I'll say it till I'm no longer able of speaking words. We are a species that are highly uncomfortable with not knowing. Not knowing makes us very uncomfortable and it threatens our safety. For all intents and purposes, this strand of novel coronavirus is brand new. So it's not going to take much for people to start losing their shit. And that's exactly what you've seen. I can guarantee you that the same thing happened for every other thing that now people are like, oh, hey, have you gotten your flu shot? Yeah, I don't think I'll get my flu shot this year. I guarantee you that over the course of time, the mass hysteria is going to calm down, especially if this is something that we're going to be stuck with. It's going to calm down, and people are going to start being able to use their fucking heads again. I can guarantee you that. But for right now, it's still new, it's still scary, and the lack of knowledge that we have specifically about what it is, and or the very simple fact that some people don't want to listen to that, is still scary for people. So this mass hysteria, while it is disappointing, and I agree with you on that, that is human nature. So don't forget that.
And the important point is that the hysteria.
What to believe, and I'm tired of people saying that they know things that they don't know, and I'm tired of the masses of hysterical people telling me that I have to act according to their hysterical judgment. Like, no, leave me alone. Let me make my own decisions and come to my own conclusions.
Chris Kafka, you've been in here a while. I'm sorry I haven't been able to get to you. It's been pretty intense. I want to get your take on the. We've been talking about vaccines and COVID in general, but I wanted to get back to the federal mandate part of things. What do you think about that, Chris Kafka?
You're not speaking.
Yeah, we can't hear you, mate. You unmuted, but we can't hear you. We're in suspense over here. Going once. Can't hear you, man. Going twice.
Pop it in another channel. Chris, pop it in another channel and come back, and you'll probably.
Yeah. Leave and come back real quick. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to get back to the actual issue because I got like not a ton of time left. I have like 20 minutes, half hour. We were talking about acceptable levels of risk. So this is kind of a question I want to pose to the room. And Lebowski already did it for me at the beginning of the show. So, you know, don't nobody think I'm particularly smart. Lebowski had me beat. But at what point are we willing to say that, hey, obviously people can still die from this thing because people can die from almost any sickness, but the risk is low enough we don't think the government has a role anymore. Now, me personally, I always thought that as soon as the vaccines came out, I was like, okay, after everybody has had a chance to get a vaccine if they want to, that's it. That's always been my line. You're able to protect yourself if you want to, and that's it. That's how I've always thought. So I know that Hanging Chad or not everybody would agree with that line. So I'm curious, where would you draw the proverbial line on when the government has no role anymore, when the risk is so low that it's up to individuals? So I want to open up the room to that question. I'd like to know what the standard is, because otherwise we're running on a treadmill for a distance we don't even know, which is not a situation that I find acceptable. Room's open. Whoever wants to go, do a little Chad. Even Krillis Dragnell, you actually haven't gotten in. How about that? Krillis, open it up.
I could add up. You see, from my personal experience, I can say that the vaccine has caused some of the people I know to have certain I wouldn't say disease, but certain
Adverse
reactions like
Yeah.
Ball's palsy and all that stuff, and rashes. And I think we don't know the full extent to what it can cause. So I would still say that it should not be mandatory. And I'm pretty sure, but that COVID is. I don't think I need to get into that, but because I've seen from experience people getting a lack of taste and the symptoms coming up, so I'm pretty sure that that's there. But I do believe that the vaccine is a little low on research. I think we need more information and more work on it before we start to actually distribute it.
All right, so it seems like we pretty much agree on that one. In
No,
terms of
we
when it's not the government's business anymore, at least. This is something. This was something. Oh, go ahead, Doodle.
You didn't even get our number.
I could not hear what you just said.
I think Chad wanted to say. I think Chad probably wanted to say. So I think the high bound of a number that would be reasonable is something like 2 million deaths per year. That would be like in the extreme freedom category. So I would say even the most extreme freedom nuts would probably say if there was 2 million deaths a year, which is about what our population replacement rate is, to where we would actually have a decline in population. I mean,
Yeah, I mean deaths. More deaths never get that high.
Yeah, no. More deaths are never good. But let's just say if you really don't trust the vaccine and you think that it's, let's just say if you think the vaccine is as deadly as COVID, looking at the population distribution of who dies from this, there's actually a really high number of deaths per year that we could live with, and it not actually affect the ongoing of our civilization. And,
that's why the excess death
number is that number is up over to the number of deaths that we can handle without actually affecting our economy is in like the 2 million kind of a range.
So
it's rough to say. I would accept 2 million deaths. I mean, we don't want to accept a lot of deaths, right? But most of those, you got to realize, most of those 2 million deaths are people that have already lived a full and complete life. They have already had the chance to reproduce. Most of them already have. Most of the people that are younger, that have their lives ahead of them, are not being affected.
Can I ask something about that then?
Sure.
So is that 2 million deaths total for the United States, or is that 2 million excess deaths on top of the standard death rate?
Just in the U.S., deaths per year due to COVID.
Just total.
2 million deaths.
Okay, due to COVID specifically.
Yeah, just specifically due to COVID. So we've got 2.6 million deaths normally in the U.S.
So double that number, and then that's what the federal government should say.
That number wouldn't double because there's a really big amount of overlap between people that die anyway.
Right.
People that die from COVID if we're not doing anything to control it.
And wait, Doolittle, are you saying that?
That's why the excess death studies were good, and I think I understand where you're coming from.
I just don't like the excess death studies because the methodology only examines a dislocation in the place and time of a death, not with respect to when it would have happened, but with respect to when somebody 5 years ago guessed that it would happen.
No, it factors in.
That's not really.
Doolittle, are you
metrics, but that's a different conversation.
Hold on, I just want to understand, Doolittle. Are you saying that as long as the death rate is total deaths are under 2 million a year, you don't think the federal government has a role? Is that it, or what were you?
No, I think that's sort of the high bounds of what's a reasonable.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I think.
It's like, I don't think 0 is a reasonable number on the low bounds.
Okay.
And because I don't think it's reasonable to say we should be able to go into any draconian measures to get it down to 0.
So what's your low bound?
I don't know, a few hundred. I'd say if we get down under a few 100,000, then I'm perfectly comfortable with living.
I was going to say, shit, we're at 700,000 damn near now. I think we're 10,000 less.
Yeah, I'm not entirely comfortable with the way. I think we need to take more measures. I don't think that. vaccine mandates is one of them, because I don't think the vaccine is the best way. It might be the only way that some people can see for their own preferences. But I think we still need to take some measures, including mandating testing and.
It sounds like we agree on that. Yeah.
People. Yeah.
All right. How about you, Chad? So I have an extra question I want to throw in there. Would you be cool with mandates if they weren't through businesses and the federal government was just like telling individual citizens like they legally had to get vaccinated? And what's your acceptable lower bound? Because if everybody who wants a vaccine having it available to them isn't good enough, at what point is it? So those are my two questions for you, and I'd like to hear you elaborate, and I'm sure that'll spawn conversation.
Yeah, I think to, I guess, think of a lower limit in which the government doesn't have a role does a disservice to what I think the government exists for as a whole. I don't believe there's ever a lower bound where the government a federal government specifically, does not have a role. Does that mean they take any sort of direct action, enforcement, any mandates or force vaccinations? No. But the federal government will always have some sort of finger on the pulse of America. It will have some role in every scenario that exists, just by sheer virtue of that's the way the world works. That is the way that our system is set up. The federal government will provide guidelines or provide some sort of guidance or funding for local governments or some sort of hand in it at every point in the entire scenario. So there's no way to completely divorce it. And there's no level of death that I would say is comfortable, in which case the federal government should not have a hand in these going-ons. From there, in the current scenario, as it stands right now, if the federal government was to come in and say, hey, you need to get a vaccine, I personally wouldn't necessarily feel any type of way for that. I think it would be an overreach, and it's not something that I would, jump on immediately and would be, on the bandwagon for. But if that is a measure that I guess at this point has to be taken, sure. I mean, I got my shots. It's fine. Most of my family did. Sadly, there are a couple of people who just frankly are honestly ignorant. They really don't know what's going on in any given scenario outside of their own world. So, I mean, I guess I get the logic, but yeah. To answer your question, there's not a single scenario or death number in which I believe we should remove any involvement of the federal government.
Okay. That's a take and a half. Roski, what do you think about the federal vaccine mandates? Give us your hot takes.
It's bullshit.
Oh, another one. Let's go. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, actually, I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. All right. Now be serious. What's the deal?
I think the line really depends. For me, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was for the lockdown because I thought it was unknown and we weren't sure what was gonna happen.
100%.
But now, we do know, and I wouldn't be for the lockdown. So there's a case where, right now, whether that's less than 1%, I don't think that really qualifies for any federal mandates. The federal government can promote vaccines and a healthy living and things like that. But I think mandates, I'm not sure what the exact limit is, but I do know right now that criteria has not been met for it to be severe enough where a mandate would deem justified.
Okay. Maybe we can meet in the middle. Let's do state mandated gyms and also state mandated vaccines. We'll just meet in the middle and it'll be great. How about that? Does that sound
Sounds like communism. Here's the thing. So here's an interesting thing. If the government is able to provide these sort of resources and provide the time and the capability for people to reasonably, attend and use these resources, is that a bad thing? So back in the USSR, they actually did have programs similar to that mandated gym. Hey, your workers have to attend X class for Y amount of time to better them as a worker. That sounds like communism, according to all of
that's why I was being satirical. Referring to the USSR as a basis of the argument is not helpful. To my mind, anyway. That's a point against.
If the government is able to provide these sort of resources would it be okay to mandate it? So say the government does say, hey, you know what, it's not really okay to be unhealthy. Here's time off, specifically paid time off, and meals or whatever else, whatever other, hypothetical needs that a person would have to have. Would it be okay for them to mandate you to go to the gym?
I don't think so. As funny as that would be, and I think that I found my next discussion topic, but we should stay on topic. You draw me into tangents, Chad. It's not okay. It's not allowed. Krillis, Dragno, I want to get everybody's answer on this before we're done. What's the lower bound? At what point do you think, hey, federal government has no more direct role, has no more real business involved in this sort of thing? Like, at what point do you think the federal government's involvement of COVID should be similar to the federal government's involvement in, like, the flu? So, at what point do you think that happens, Krillis? And then we're going all around the room.
For me personally, I think it would be about in a certain city or so. I think it would be about 100,000 to 200,000 is my vote.
And so you guys have all used numbers so far as your lower bounds. I kind of used like resources available, like vaccines available, but why 100,000 to 200,000?
I mean, for me, I consider even one life really valuable. So I think if it goes to a certain amount, they should get involved into. 100,000 is a lot as well. It could be your loved ones or something, so it could affect you personally.
Raul?
In terms of lower bound, I'm not sure what the exact number would be. Obviously, like if it was in the tens of millions, like we probably have to mandate something, or at least try to do everything we can to stop it. If it takes out like core of the population, I think most people will be for extreme action in that case. But in terms of if it's like less than 1%, and I wouldn't really distinguish between like the government, state government, or any government, or like large corporations. I think like federal like mandates, even if it comes from Amazon or Walmart, will be the same as if it's from the government, and it shall be mandated if the conditions are severe enough in the first place.
All right. Roski, you just talked. Do you have anything to add? Since I know you just got in here, so I want to give you another chance. Do you have anything you want to add, or are you good?
No, not really. I'm just here to listen.
All right, Zaverfang, and then we'll end off with some fireworks. I'll say something, and then we're gonna move over to the Tav. So Zaverfang, what do you think?
I'm inarticulate with regards to COVID because it doesn't seem like a problem over here. And I was
Where is over here? I mean, I don't want to dox you, but
differentiate between deaths from COVID and people who had COVID when they died. And
yeah, that's actually been interesting, how they classify those.
Like, okay, like how do they differentiate between someone who has COVID or had COVID when they died and who died of COVID?
Right. I don't know how they
It's
differentiate.
usually up to the. Okay, go for it. Whoever was going to speak.
No, Chad.
Yeah, in the U.S., if you die with a positive COVID test, then they put COVID as a cause of death, at least as a contributing cause of death.
Yikes.
As a contributing cause of death, depending on what the mortician or the
that's what
doctor
they
says.
put on your. Yeah, let me finish. Yeah, so that's what they put on your death certificate, and all of those, no matter how much they contributed, are counted in the COVID death statistic.
Yikes. Okay.
So that's
so
maybe adding die of COVID as part of the COVID deaths.
No, it's entirely true. There's been like some extreme cases that have made it on newspapers where, like for example, in my town, somebody fell off of a ladder and hit his head on the ground and got a positive COVID test on the way to the hospital, and they called it a COVID death. And Cha-ching, the hospital gets $40,000 for
you don't get funding if it's COVID.
Oh, Lebowski, I think we skipped you.
Actually, attest on that. So you don't get extra funding if it's COVID. You get significantly less federal and state dollars if you classify a death as quote unquote COVID than you do for a myriad of other diseases slash
All
conditions.
right,
So-
shoot that source in live
Everybody in the
chat.
room seems to disagree with you.
Huh?
Yeah, as of right now, as working for a company called Nuance that deals with patient portals slash patient reporting systems for multiple hospitals, including the largest ones around where I'm at, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Veritas, stuff like that. All of those systems are specifically the recording software they use to report these deaths and report these numbers and actually, balance the books, for lack of a better word. You don't get any extra funding.
That's a lot of words.
Far more profitable to say that a guy had an aneurysm.
Hold on, one at a time,
the
villain.
doctors that are saying that they get
Villain,
reimbursed for.
Everybody stop. One at a time. Chad, I think you were done. So, villain, now it's your turn, and now I can actually hear you. Because I actually like to hear what you have to say, which is why we go one at a time.
He was done, and I didn't talk over him.
Yeah, and then, and then Raul started talking, and Hanging Chad started talking, and that's why I made everybody stop.
I'm saying
and then
you're
let you start
making a
again.
claim, post it. Everybody else in the room seems to believe otherwise. There are many claims that we're all familiar with that say of doctors outright saying that if they put COVID as the death cause, the federal government reimburses them. So we're not making the argument for that. We're pushing back against you. So you're the one that made the claim. Post it in there. Post your evidence.
All right. So both of you post your respective evidence in the live text chat.
No. I'm not.
Oh, you absolutely should. You said
Well, yeah, you said. Well, I mean, I understand that the burden of proof is on Chad here, but you referred to doctors.
But you're making the initial claim.
All right, that sounds good. We need to move on from this.
All right. Well, if
somebody pushes back against you, you're like, oh, you like weasel out of it.
No, hey, villain, stop, dude. You were doing so good. Don't say that.
I put the article in the live text from the
Great.
dispatch.com, which details how much the big hospital in Columbus received in COVID bonuses for the 20% additional in Medicare payments. And they said that the COVID bonuses have made up for the 40% shortfall in the hospital's revenue due to the non-essential surgeries being put off.
Great, Doolittle. So, anybody on YouTube who's not part of the Discord server, quick plug, go ahead and join if you want to see these sources in the live text chat and verify for yourself which of these fine gentlemen are correct. That's my time.
Before you do your sign off, I want to make one point.
All right, Doolittle.
I think it was the biggest mistake in the vaccines. It's a persuasion mistake.
Yeah, 100%.
They set the price of the vaccine at $0, and that was the biggest mistake anyone ever made in persuading people to take the vaccine.
Right.
If you want people to want something, one of the best ways of doing it is to create a perception of scarcity. So in the first waves of the vaccine rollout, they did create that perception of scarcity, but they were like, only this, subcategory of people get to get it, and people were fighting over getting to get it. But then when it goes to where they were trying to spread it to the whole population, the price has always been $0. And if you go on the street and there's something, even if it's valuable, and you see that there's a $0 price, just take as many as you want, people aren't going to want it. If you make it so that it appears scarce, and at least, even at least if you have to pay for it, people will perceive that as something that has value that they will want to get.
Right.
And not, as opposed to seeing it as something that's getting pushed on them. No, you don't have to pay for it, just go get it. And I'll tell you, you got to go get it. And here's all the reasons why I'm going to tell you. So
They're giving people everything from marijuana to cheeseburgers to money to raffle tickets.
Yeah, if they just made it $200, everyone would save up some money.
When you feel like you're being bribed, it makes you skeptical of what you're being told. I agree. Lebowski, go ahead.
I have a hypothetical question for you, Doolittle, though. So what if all of a sudden there's a place you can go to get free blowjobs?
Must be bad.
Get a-
Must get an STD. You have to.
Actually, that's a scary place to go to because I've been there.
All right. Well, on that incredibly relevant note, we're gonna move over to the tab. Please move over to the tab and make more of these kind of jokes. Thank you for coming, everybody. I appreciate your time. We'll do it next week, and it will be great. YouTube, thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe. It helps the channel. Doesn't help me personally, but what?
John killed it tonight, guys. Fucking round of applause. Good job, John.
Do my best.
Good job, mate.
Yeah, lots of fun. Do my best. You know, we love good faith discourse over here, so help it grow by helping the channel. And that's it for me. I don't know if anybody got convinced, but I know I got a little bit softened up. I mean, I still hold my position, but probably less adamantly. And, you know, I guess that's progress. So, thank you, everybody. I'm going to turn off the live chat. Excuse me?
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me? No. Okay. Villain, love to have you, man. Love hearing your ideas. Sorry I had to do a little bit of modding. I didn't like doing it, but it was kind of necessary. So thanks for coming by anyway. All right, later, everybody. Live's over.
Yeah.